My name is Jenna Ward, and I built my career on integrity, until the day my own sister demanded I risk it all for her second chance. When I refused, my mother chimed in on speakerphone, backing Chelsea with guilt-laced words I've heard my whole life. Family helps family. That morning, in the sleek heart of Seattle's Clearwater Solutions office, I learned the hard way. When family leverages love as a weapon, your success becomes their collateral. And believe me, I wasn't going down without a fight. Before we dive in, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel, especially when they hit close to home. Now let's rewind to the day everything began to unravel. You ever have one of those mornings where everything tastes off, like even your coffee is trying to warn you? It was barely 9:00 a.m. when my sister Chelsea walked into my office like she owned the place. Not knocked, not even paused. Just barged in like we were still teenagers sharing a room. She tossed her oversized handbag on one of my client chairs and plopped down like this was her weekly therapy session. I was in the middle of reviewing a financial report for an upcoming pitch, but that didn't matter to Chelsea. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be," she said, smirking. "You owe me this job." That was when the mug in my hand, my favorite one that said Queen of Spreadsheets, hit the desk with a little more force than intended. "I owe you," I echoed, slowly setting down my pen. "Yes." She crossed one leg over the other nonchalantly. "You're the golden child, Jenna. You've got the title, the glass office, the respect. Helping your little sister get a foot in the door is the least you can do." I stared at her. Her hair was done like she had nowhere to be, nails fresh, makeup sharp. She didn't look desperate, she looked smug. "You were fired from your last job for showing up drunk, Chelsea. Twice," I said, keeping my voice level. She shrugged. "That's in the past, people change." "Not overnight." That's when my phone buzzed, our mom calling in. I almost ignored it, but Chelsea gestured toward it, saying perfect timing. I put it on speaker. "Mom," I said, clipped. "Oh good, you two are together," Mom chimed brightly, like this was some brunch call. "Jenna, honey, I think you're being a bit hard on your sister. She just needs a fresh start." "She needs accountability," I said sharply. "She's family." That phrase, that cursed phrase, it always seemed to come up when they wanted something from me. "Mom," I said slowly, "this is my workplace. My name is on every report. If she screws up here, it's my head on the chopping block." "But you've always had it easier," she replied. "You've always been the responsible one. Isn't that worth paying forward?" It was like being complimented and insulted at the same time. Chelsea leaned back, arms crossed, that smugness still dripping off her like perfume. "You're scared I'll embarrass you, but don't worry, I'll make you look good." "No, Chelsea," I said, standing now, voice rising. "I'm scared you'll keep being exactly who you've always been, selfish, reckless, entitled." Her smile dropped. She stood too. "Wow, all this from the perfect sister. Maybe you're just mad Mom actually supports me for once." The room snapped with tension. I felt my fists clench, my jaw tighten. She had always known how to twist the knife. Without another word, she grabbed her bag and stormed out, heels clicking across the polished floors, leaving silence in her wake. I stood there, the coffee cooling beside me, my heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with caffeine. My office, usually my sanctuary, felt invaded, violated. I closed the door gently, leaned back against it, and let out a slow, shaky breath. Because deep down, I knew something had shifted that morning. And it wasn't just between me and Chelsea. It was between me and the illusion that family loyalty was ever truly mutual. The next morning smelled like French toast and forced forgiveness. I was back in Bellevue, sitting stiffly at my parents' kitchen table, flanked like a chess piece, Mom on my right, Dad on my left. The same breakfast nook I used to do homework in now felt like an interrogation booth dressed up with syrup and scrambled eggs. "I still don't understand why you have to make everything so dramatic," Mom said, reaching for the butter. "It's just a job, Jenna." "Right," I murmured. "Just my reputation on the line." Dad cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes as usual. "Your sister's been through a rough patch. She needs this." "She caused that rough patch, Dad, and now you're asking me to clean it up." Mom placed her fork down with a soft clink. "You've always been the strong one, sweetheart, the achiever. You know how to survive anywhere." There it was again, that backhanded compliment, Translation, we expect more from you because we always have. I pushed my eggs around my plate, not hungry. And Chelsea just coasts through life, leaving fires behind for me to put out. She's your sister, Mom said, voice sweet but firm. And family helps family. That line again, like it was gospel. You don't get it, I said quietly, finally looking up. You didn't see her in my office yesterday, the way she smirked, the way she acted like she was entitled to it. She's scared, Dad finally spoke, his voice low. She doesn't show it well, never has, I sighed, leaning back in my chair. The silence stretched long enough for the ticking wall clock to start feeling accusatory. Then Mom leaned in slightly. Just give her the chance, please. I wanted to scream, to ask why it was always me who had to bend. But instead, I took a long breath and said what I knew they wanted to hear on my terms. Fine, I'll get her in, but listen carefully. They both looked up. If she screws up even once, if she's late, if she fakes it, if she disrespects anyone, I'm pulling the plug, and I'm not covering for her, not this time. Dad nodded slowly. Mom reached across the table and patted my hand like I'd just agreed to something generous, not something dangerous. I heard footsteps in the hallway, and there she was. Chelsea, leaning against the doorway in leggings and a hoodie that looked too clean to be casual, phone in hand. Guess I came down at the perfect time, she said, not even trying to hide the smugness. I stared at her. She was already texting. Got the job nail polish, she read aloud with a smirk hitting send. You won't regret it, sis. Yeah, I said, standing up and grabbing my bag. I already do. As I headed for the door, I caught Mom and Dad exchanging looks behind my back. Not worried, relieved. Like they'd finally managed to guilt me into doing the right thing. But here's the part no one ever tells you about being the reliable one. The fixer, the high achiever, the fallback plan. Eventually, people stop asking if you're okay, because they assume you always are. I stepped outside into the gray Seattle morning, the air sharp against my face, and pulled my coat tight. Chelsea got the job. But I got the sinking feeling that this was going to cost me a lot more than my pride. Chelsea's first day was a 4-hour late disaster wrapped in designer sunglasses and an iced matcha. I was deep into my Monday morning ritual, back-to-back budget meetings, email triage, and preparing for our quarterly revenue report when my assistant popped her head into my office. There's a guest at the front desk asking for you, she said, her voice tight with concern. Said she's your sister. I didn't even look up. Tell her I'm in a meeting. She says she works here now. I froze mid-click. Oh no, I practically jogged down the corridor, heels clicking like war drums. And there she was, perched on the receptionist's desk like it was a poolside cabana. Chelsea, oversized sunglasses covering half her face, holding a matcha latte in one hand and a phone in the other. No resume folder, no notepad, no basic understanding of how clocks work. Hey, sis, she chirped as if this was brunch. You're 4 hours late, I hissed under my breath. She waved it off. Traffic was crazy. And I had to stop for this, she said, lifting her drink with a wink. My jaw clenched. Come with me now. I marched her to the corner cubicle they'd reserved for her far from my office, thank God, and dropped her onboarding packet on the desk. This is your workspace, I said curtly. Read everything, follow instructions, do not make me regret this. Chill, Jenna, she said, sliding into the chair like a teenager on detention. It's not rocket science. It wasn't. But apparently it was beyond her. An hour later, I was summoned to HR. Jenna, Danielle from Human Resources began in her usual calm but concerned voice. We just wanted to flag something. Early. I blinked. What kind of something? She tapped her screen, pulling up an email with the subject line, HR red flag, ward referral. My stomach dropped. Your sister arrived late, very late. No ID, no paperwork, and when asked about our standard onboarding protocols, she said, and I quote, "Talk to Jenna, I'm her problem." My stomach flipped. She said that, Danielle nodded. And while we understand onboarding referrals can come with growing pains, this isn't a good reflection on your judgment. That stung, worse than I thought it would. She promised she'd be responsible, I muttered, the words leaving my mouth like a confession I didn't believe. Danielle gave me a sympathetic look. We know your record here, Jenna, stellar, but this situation needs to be handled carefully. We can't afford reputational risks. Not now. I nodded, my chest burning. She'll get in line, I said, more to myself than to Danielle. Back in my office, I sat at my desk staring at the same spreadsheet I'd been working on that morning, only now the numbers blurred and danced, mocking me. Chelsea hadn't even made it through lunch on day one without setting off alarm bells. I had begged my parents for just one thing, that if she messed up, I wouldn't be the one to take the hit. And here I was already apologizing on her behalf, already making excuses. It was starting again, and I had no idea how to stop it. Sometimes, against your better judgment, you give people chances they haven't earned, because somewhere in your bones, you're still hoping they'll surprise you. That was me, staying late night after night to help Chelsea. After her disastrous first day, I couldn't shake the shame I felt walking past HR. The whisper of doubt in Director Hayes' voice. The way Lana from accounting gave me a look that said, "You brought this on yourself." And maybe I had, but still I couldn't shake that stupid voice in my head. The one that still believed Chelsea might just try. Maybe all she needed was structure, patience. Someone who hadn't given up on her yet, so I started staying after work. No more matcha lattes. No phone in meetings. I began from scratch, walking her through the basics, pivot tables, internal protocols, the difference between urgent and important. At first, she rolled her eyes, a lot. "This feels like school," she groaned one evening, sprawled in her chair while I clicked through a report template. "I was never good at school." "You were never present at school," I replied, not unkindly. "There's a difference," she snorted. "You sound like Mom." That stung more than she knew, but I swallowed it. The thing is, I wanted to be wrong about her. I wanted to believe that if I just showed her how to take things seriously, she would rise to the occasion. One night, about 2 weeks in, something strange happened. We were reviewing a Q3 budget analysis, basic stuff but tedious, and I'd asked her to summarize the data into a visual report for the team. She disappeared into her cubicle for over an hour. When she returned, she dropped a printout on my desk. "Don't laugh," she said, almost shyly. I scanned the paper. It wasn't perfect. There were formatting issues and one mislabeled column. But for once it was thoughtful, attempted, decent. I glanced up. She was chewing her thumbnail, eyes darting nervously between me and the report. "This section's not bad," I said, tapping the second page. "You broke down the expenses by quarter. That's actually helpful." Chelsea brightened, and for a second I saw a glimmer of the sister I used to know. Before the partying, before the entitlement, before the family molded her into the helpless one who always needed rescuing. "Maybe I'm not hopeless, huh?" she said with a half smile, her voice quiet. I wanted to believe her. God help me, I did believe her. In that moment, in that quiet after-hours calm when the janitors had already passed through and our monitors were the only light left in the office. Maybe I'm not hopeless. I watched her gather her things, humming to herself, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Hope. It was tentative. Fragile. The kind of hope you keep tucked inside your coat pocket like a matchbook. You don't dare light it yet, but you keep it close just in case. The question wasn't whether she could pull it together. It was whether she would. Hope doesn't die with a bang. It dies slowly, in the silence of unanswered texts, missed deadlines, and the sick realization that you've been left holding the bag again. It was a Thursday. Nothing unusual, just a routine morning where every second counted. Our department had a critical 10 a.m. meeting with a prospective client, a logistics tech firm that could bring in a 6-figure deal if we landed them. I'd triple-checked the slide deck, flagged every potential question they might throw our way, and reminded Chelsea, twice, that she needed to finalize and email the data summary by 8:30. "On it," she'd said the night before, tapping her phone as we left the office late. "Already in my drafts." I believed her. Stupidly, I believed her. 8:00 rolled around and there was no file. I checked my inbox again. And again. 8:20. Nothing. I called her, straight to voicemail. Texted, "Chelsea, where's the report? Meeting in 90 minutes. Please respond." 9:00 a.m. The room started filling up. I was still refreshing the shared drive like a fool. Sweat prickled the back of my neck as I pasted old data from last quarter, trying to make it look current. 9:45. I took my seat at the head of the table, smiling like I wasn't panicking inside. By the time the meeting ended at 11:00, I was running on fumes and rage. We'd survived it. Barely. I'd stayed up until midnight the night before prepping the bones of the deck, but Chelsea's section had been critical. I had to wing her part using last month's numbers, hoping no one noticed. But the client's questions had been sharp. Too sharp. My credibility had taken a hit. I could feel it in every raised eyebrow and awkward silence. After the meeting, I all but ran to my desk and called her again. Still no answer. It wasn't until 12:13 p.m. that my phone buzzed. Chelsea. I answered immediately. Where the hell were you? A long yawn echoed through the receiver. What? You missed the meeting, you didn't send the report, I was begging you to respond. Oh, was that today? She asked groggily. I felt the air leave my lungs. Yes, Chelsea, today, the client meeting I reminded you about 3 times. She made a noise like she was stretching. God, relax, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, I was up late. Doing what, clubbing? No, she snapped, suddenly defensive. I was just out and I didn't think you'd need me, you always pull it off. That broke something in me. You didn't think it mattered, I said, my voice tight, because you assume I'll always be there to fix it. Don't be so dramatic, she muttered. It's not the end of the world. No, it wasn't, but it felt like the end of my patience. I stayed up past midnight making sure that meeting didn't implode. I covered for you again. Do you even care what that costs me? Silence. Then she sighed. Geez, I said I was sorry. No, you didn't. I hung up. And then I sat in my cubicle staring at the flickering cursor on an empty email draft, the ache in my chest sharp and familiar. A mix of betrayal and shame. Not at her. At myself for still hoping she'd change. That night I stayed at the office. Not late, all night. Because the data that should have taken 30 minutes took me 6 hours to rebuild from scratch. I'd already missed my window with the original file. But I needed to make sure the corrected version would be ready before the next executive review. The office was silent. Just me, the hum of the server closet, and the cold blue light of my monitor. Around 3:47 a.m., I caught my reflection in the window. Eyes puffy. Blazer wrinkled. Half-empty coffee cup shaking in my hand. And I asked myself a question I should have asked weeks ago. Why am I letting her sink me? Family dinners used to mean something. When I was little, it was where we laughed over mashed potatoes and caught up on our days. Now, it was just a performance, passive-aggressive lines delivered over roast chicken and wilted salad. Chelsea and I hadn't spoken in 2 days, not since the report incident, but tonight we were all summoned to the Ward family dinner. My parents' idea of bonding, or more accurately, managing the tension they knew was building but didn't want to name. I almost canceled. I was exhausted, emotionally fried and barely holding my temper. But some part of me, maybe the masochistic part, still hoped they'd finally see what I was carrying. Instead, I was greeted with scented candles and a table set like it was Thanksgiving. You're just in time, Mom called from the kitchen as I walked in, like this was any other Tuesday. Dad poured wine. Chelsea was already seated, scrolling through her phone like she hadn't nearly cost me my job that week. So, Jenna, Mom said as we passed around the salad bowl, how's work going? I laughed, actually laughed. Are we really going to pretend we don't know how it's going? Mom gave me that tight smile she reserves for moments when I've embarrassed her in public. Let's not bring tension to the table, she said gently. It's just a family dinner. Right, I said, stabbing a piece of chicken. A family dinner where one child screws up and the other one is told to smile and chew quietly. Dad cleared his throat. Let's all try to keep things civil. I set my fork down. Fine, let's be civil. Let's talk about how Chelsea skipped a critical client meeting, didn't turn in her part of the report, and ghosted me for 2 days while I stayed up all night fixing her mess. Chelsea looked up then, eyes narrowing. Wow, are we doing this now? I begged you to send me that file. You left me out to dry. I was tired, she snapped. It was a stupid file, Jenna. You act like I committed a crime. Mom jumped in. She didn't mean to cause problems, she just misjudged the timing. No, I said, voice icy. She didn't care, and she knew I'd pick up the slack because that's what I've always done. Dad shifted in his seat. That's not fair, isn't it? I cut in. You've always expected more from me, always excused her. When she flunks out, you blame the professors. When she gets fired, it's the manager's fault. When she shows up to work 4 hours late, somehow I'm the one who gets called into HR. Chelsea stood up suddenly, napkin falling to the floor. You're such a martyr, Jenna, always painting yourself as the victim. You act like the rest of us are just leeches draining your perfect little life. I stared at her. You are, and I'm done pretending otherwise. Silence. It was the kind of silence that hums, tense, ready to snap. Mom sighed and shook her head. You've always been so uptight. That one sentence, that tiny little sigh, like I was the problem for expecting basic respect, did more damage than all of Chelsea's mistakes combined. I pushed my plate away, my appetite gone. I'm done being your backup plan, I said quietly. Dad opened his mouth to respond, but I stood before he could. Chelsea, enjoy the job, because if you screw up again, I won't be there to fix it. And Mom, you want to keep treating her like she's a helpless little girl. Go ahead. But I'm not playing this game anymore. I walked out before anyone could say another word. The air outside was cooler than I expected, sharp against my skin as I made my way to my car. My hands shook not from anger, but from the sheer relief of finally saying it out loud. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in the car, engine running, watching my breath fog up the windshield. It felt like something had cracked wide open inside me, and in the wreckage there was space. Space for something better. The next morning, the office felt colder than usual. Not in temperature, tone. You know that feeling when something's off, even though no one said a word yet? That was the air I walked into. My inbox had a flagged email from Morgan Hayes, our director. Subject line, touch base today, please stop by. If you've ever worked in corporate, you know that's HR speak for brace yourself. I walked past the break room, past Chelsea's empty desk, of course she was late again, and straight to Morgan's glass-walled office. He was already sitting, blazer off, shirt sleeves rolled, fingers steepled like a man preparing to break bad news gently. Jenna, he said, gesturing toward the seat across from him. Close the door, will you? I did. My heart thudded louder than the latch click. Everything okay? I asked, trying to sound calm. He exhaled and swiveled his monitor toward me. We've had several complaints in the last week. Small things individually, but together they're concerning. I leaned forward, already dreading what I was about to see. There they were, 3 incident reports, a missed submission, a misrouted invoice, an unreturned client call, all filed under Chelsea Ward but with my name CC'd on the delegation chain. Morgan tapped the screen. Your sister claimed she had handled these herself. My blood ran cold. She what? She told our compliance analyst she'd cleared all of these through you, that you were guiding her on these steps directly. I blinked. That's a lie. I didn't even know these were assigned to her. He leaned back, watching me closely. I could feel the pressure mounting behind my eyes, but I held it in. I've documented every task I've assigned her, I said. There's a shared folder, timelines, time-stamped messages. I've been monitoring her because I knew this would happen. Morgan nodded slowly. I believe you. But Jenna, perception matters here. You're the one who pushed to bring her on, which means whether she fails or not, you carry the fallout. There it was. The real cost of giving someone a chance they didn't deserve. I felt like I was sinking into that chair, not from fear, but from exhaustion. From watching my hard-earned credibility being chipped away, inch by someone who couldn't care less. I understand, I said quietly. We're not making any decisions yet, he continued. But this needs to be addressed, and soon. I left his office numb, walking past rows of cubicles where my name used to carry weight and now just carried whispers. Back at my desk, I opened my team's Slack thread. A message from Lana blinked at the top. You okay? I saw you walk out of Morgan's. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the keys. Then I typed. Chelsea blamed me for her errors. I think this is my breaking point. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Then stop saving her. Let her fail, it's not your job to babysit. I stared at that sentence. Simple, true, painful, but freeing. I minimized the chat window and sat back, hands folded. Let her fail. It felt cold at first. But then I thought about all the times I had bent over backward to protect her. All the nights I'd spent fixing her mistakes. All the trust I had risked for what? So she could hand off the blame without blinking. That's when I knew I was done. Not just saying I was done, but living it. No more damage control. No more cleanup. No more catching her as she falls, especially when she's the one pushing me off the ledge. I didn't go looking for her. But fate, being the dramatic little playwright it is, placed Chelsea exactly where I couldn't avoid her. In the break room, nursing a cup of coffee like she wasn't casually detonating my career. It was mid-afternoon. I just wrapped up a tense client call and walked in to refill my water bottle. There she was, perched on the counter, scrolling through her phone with an air of practiced detachment. She looked up, smiled, like nothing had happened. "You okay?" she asked, like she didn't know exactly what she'd done. I shut the fridge a little harder than necessary. "You lied." She tilted her head, feigning confusion. "About what?" "Don't play dumb," I snapped. "The misfiled invoice, the report you didn't finish, the client email you ignored, you told everyone you had my approval." She blinked, then offered a half-hearted shrug. "I didn't mean to, I just assumed you'd be fine with it, you always are." My mouth went dry. "Chelsea, you told HR you handled it. You told Morgan I cleared your mistakes. That's not just lazy, that's sabotage." Her face crumpled suddenly, and without warning, tears welled in her eyes. "Oh, here we go," I muttered. She slid off the counter dramatically, hugging her arms like a child caught in the rain. "You think I'm trying to ruin you," she said, voice cracking. "You think this is all some evil plan. I think you don't care what happens to me as long as you stay comfortable." "I do care," she said, eyes welling. "But every time I mess up, you act like I'm doing it on purpose, like I'm your enemy. Because every time I give you a chance, you use it to make me look worse." "I'm trying, Jenna," she snapped. "But it's like nothing I do will ever be enough for you. Maybe you just want me to fail." That one made me laugh. A bitter, humorless sound. "Failing isn't the problem," I said. "Lying is, blaming me is. Showing up 4 hours late on your first day and then crying in the break room like you're the victim, that's the problem." The door opened behind me and in walked Danielle from HR. Of course. She paused, eyes scanning the scene, me standing stiff, Chelsea teary-eyed and red-faced. "Everything okay in here?" she asked, in that HR-neutral tone that said this could be a reportable moment. Chelsea sniffled and dropped her voice to a whisper. "She's just really hard on me sometimes." I couldn't breathe. Danielle glanced between us, nodded politely, and slipped out without comment, but her expression said everything: concern, confusion, and suspicion. I turned back to Chelsea, voice cold now. "You're painting me as the villain, again." She said nothing, just looked down, letting the silence do the rest of the manipulation. And I saw it clearly for the first time, not the chaos, not the drama, but the strategy. Chelsea wasn't just irresponsible. She was smart in the way dangerous people are. She knew how to bend the narrative. She knew when to cry, who to cry in front of, and exactly how to make me look like the cold, overbearing older sister with impossible standards. But I wasn't going to be her shield anymore. "You want to fail? Fine," I said, grabbing my water bottle. "Do it all by yourself." Then I walked out, past the curious eyes, past the whispers, past the guilt she tried to stick to me like gum on my heel. This time I left the mess behind, and I didn't look back. By the time I got back to my cubicle, my hands were trembling, not with sadness, not guilt, but with a quiet, boiling fury I had nowhere to put. That kind of heat that bubbles up when someone rewrites the truth right in front of you, and suddenly you're the one who looks crazy. Chelsea's performance in the break room was a masterpiece of manipulation. Tears at just the right moment, volume low enough to sound delicate when HR walked in, and just enough vagueness to plant a seed of doubt. I could already feel the eyes on me, the ones that didn't quite know what happened but had seen enough to start whispering. She played me. Again. And I had walked right into it. I dropped into my chair like I'd been shoved there, my heart racing, mouth dry. My screen still displayed a half-done client summary. I couldn't even see it. All I could see was the look Danielle gave me, polite, professional, and cautious. Like maybe I was the problem. And that's when Lana appeared beside me, holding a steaming mug like she'd been waiting for me to break. "You all right?" she asked quietly. I looked up, blinking. "Am I bleeding?" She raised an eyebrow. "Because I feel like I've been stabbed," I muttered, forcing a laugh. She pulled up the spare chair next to my desk and sat down without asking. "Chelsea." "Of course." She nodded once like she'd been expecting the answer. "Want to tell me what she pulled this time?" I told her. Not all of it, but enough. The lies to HR, the crocodile tears, the emotional sleight of hand Chelsea had practically perfected. Lana listened in that way only certain people do. No interruptions, no judgment, just an eyebrow raise at the juiciest parts and a slow sip of coffee during the worst. When I finally stopped, she leaned back and said, "So stop saving her." I blinked. "Excuse me." "You heard me, let her sink." I stared at her. "That's harsh." "No," Lana said calmly. "It's overdue." Her voice wasn't unkind, just unapologetic. "You're not helping her by softening her landings. You're just making sure she never learns how to fall." I felt a flicker of something, resentment maybe, or maybe just the sting of knowing she was right. "She's my sister," I said softly, and it sounded more like an apology than a justification. "So, you don't owe her your career." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out, because that was the truth I'd been dancing around for months, maybe years. I thought I was being the good one, the strong one, the one who didn't walk away when things got messy. But what I really was exhausted. Lana stood and handed me the mug. "Drink something, breathe, and stop dragging her weight uphill. You've done your part." After she left, I sat in the lamplight of my desk for a long time, just staring at the steam rising from the coffee. And for the first time in weeks, maybe longer, I thought, what if I just let go? What if I stopped fixing everything? What if I let Chelsea's consequences find her instead of running ahead to intercept them? That night, I didn't stay late. I didn't even log back in after dinner. I went home. I cooked something I liked, something Chelsea hated and Mom used to call too spicy, and I ate it barefoot in silence with the window open. The breeze felt like an exhale I hadn't realized I was holding. And as I curled up on the couch, laptop shut, deadlines ignored, I realized the world hadn't ended. The office was still standing. The clients were still emailing. And Chelsea, well, she was probably somewhere spinning another version of reality. But I didn't need to orbit her drama anymore. The next morning, I wore my boldest blazer. Red, sharp, undeniable. When Morgan called me into his office, I didn't hesitate. "I'm removing myself from Chelsea's oversight," I said before he could even speak. "Effective immediately." He leaned back, surprised. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said, steady. "She's misrepresented me, lied, and continues to put our department at risk. I'm not going to be her scapegoat or her crutch." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "That's gutsy." "It's overdue." He smiled faintly. "Good, we've been watching, and I think we both know it's time she stands on her own." As I left his office, Lana passed me by and raised an eyebrow. I gave her a look that said everything. And for the first time since this mess started, I walked back to my desk without carrying someone else's weight. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was free. It was late. Too late. 9:46 p.m. The kind of hour when most people are home, curled up with reality TV and comfort food. But not me. I was in my office alone, running one last check before the biggest executive presentation of my career. I'd been preparing this deck for 2 weeks, graphs, forecasting models, market strategy slides. It was all riding on this pitch. New clients, bigger budgets, a possible promotion if it went well. But the file was gone, not just mislabeled. Gone. I blinked at the screen, confused. Hit refresh. Checked the folder again. Then again, no sign of it, my chest tightened. I opened my backup folder, nothing. I pulled up the file history. There had to be a previous version. Nothing. That's when the panic started to climb, not frantic, ice cold. I opened the access log. One name popped up right above mine. Chelsea Ward. Accessed at 4:03 p.m. She had opened the file today. I stared at the timestamp like it might change if I blinked hard enough. Nope. Still there. I didn't want to believe it. Not again, not now, but deep in my gut before I even called her, I knew. I picked up my phone and dialed. No answer. I texted, "Where's the PowerPoint file? Did you move or delete it? I'm missing the presentation. You accessed it this afternoon, 3 dots. Then they disappeared, then nothing. I called again. This time she picked up. The sound of music and chatter poured through the line. "Hello," she shouted, her voice syrupy with party girl energy. "Where are you?" I snapped. "I'm out with Mandy and Lauren. What's up?" "You opened the presentation file today at 4, now it's gone." A pause. "What?" "Don't what me, it was right there, now it's not. You accessed it last." Her voice dropped into a half laugh. "Relax, Jenna, maybe you forgot to save it." "Don't lie to me, you were the last one in it, it didn't just vanish." She huffed. "I didn't touch anything, maybe you clicked the wrong folder, chill out, it's just a file." Just a file, just my future. My hands were shaking. "I have to present that file in 10 hours. "Well," she said breezily, "good luck." She hung up, no apology, no guilt, just the sound of betrayal in the form of a dial tone. I stood there in silence for a long moment, staring at the phone like it might undo itself. Then I sat down, rolled up my sleeves, and reopened a blank presentation. If she wanted to leave me with nothing, fine. I'd build something better, from scratch. Slide by slide, bullet point by bullet point. I worked through the night. No music, no distractions, just me, my keyboard, and the weight of everything I was finally seeing clearly. By 2 a.m., my shoulders ached and my contacts felt like sandpaper. By 3:30, the charts were rebuilt. By 4:45, I had something usable. By 5:15, I had something good. Not perfect, not polished, but good enough to stand on its own. To stand for me. The sky outside was just beginning to lighten, soft blue bleeding into the horizon over Seattle's skyline. The office was hushed and hollow, the kind of stillness that either breaks you or rebuilds you. As the sun cracked over the water, I sat back in my chair, exhausted but clear. Chelsea had crossed a line, not a mistake, not a misstep, a choice. And that choice had consequences. This time, I wasn't cleaning up quietly. I wasn't swallowing my fury for the sake of family unity. I wasn't protecting her. She had taken something that wasn't hers. And in a few hours, I would take it back in the most public way possible. You'd think betrayal feels like fire, sharp, immediate, a burn you can't ignore. But that morning, sitting at the long, polished table in Clearwater's executive boardroom, betrayal felt like something else entirely. Ice. Cold. Numbing. A slow freeze that started in my spine the moment I stepped into the room and saw her already standing at the head of the table. Chelsea, in my seat, with my slides glowing behind her. I stopped mid-step. The executive team, Morgan, 2 VPs, and the potential client from Meridian Tech were already seated, polite smiles plastered in place. Chelsea was mid-sentence, gesturing toward a graph I had personally spent 3 hours rebuilding from memory at 2:00 a.m. So, as you can see, the logistics gaps align with our projected route optimizations, she said smoothly, tapping her finger on the remote. My slide. My phrasing. I didn't move. I didn't blink. She looked over at me just once. No guilt, just a flicker of smug panic, as if to say, don't ruin this. Oh, but I would. I slid into an empty chair at the side of the room. Morgan gave me a sharp glance, one part confusion, one part concern. Chelsea clicked to the next slide. Another one of mine. She was skating on stolen ice, and she didn't even flinch, until the client asked a question. How did you calculate the routing differential here? The man asked, pointing to the bar graph. Chelsea blinked. The differential. Oh, we used a combination of past shipment patterns and forecasted delays based on, she trailed off. Because she didn't know, because she hadn't made the slide. I raised my hand, calm, controlled. Would it help if I walked through that section? I asked, my voice neutral. The client smiled. Sure, that'd be great. Chelsea froze. Morgan's jaw clenched. I stood and walked to the front of the room, clicking back to the graph. This was based on a 2-year trend analysis using Clearwater's logistics software and a layered projection model I built last quarter. If you'd like, I can pull up the spreadsheet with raw data. I turned slowly toward Chelsea. Unless you'd prefer to walk us through it. Her face flushed. I delegated that section, she stammered. To whom? I asked, raising my brows. She didn't answer. I smiled politely. Let's do a quick check. I clicked into the file properties, pulling up the document's metadata on the big screen. Created by Jenna Ward, modified by Jenna Ward, last accessed Chelsea Ward. Gasps weren't audible, but the silence was louder. I let the screen speak for itself, then turned to the client. I'd be happy to send you the full model later today. It includes the variables Chelsea just mentioned, although she's not part of that particular development process. Morgan's face was unreadable, but his eyes, sharp as razors. Chelsea stood frozen at the edge of the table, eyes darting from me to the screen. It was a misunderstanding. No, I said quietly, meeting her gaze. It was theft. I didn't yell, didn't raise my voice, didn't even look angry, because I wasn't. I was done. The presentation continued with me leading it. I answered questions, made my points, and by the time we wrapped, the client shook my hand with a smile. Chelsea didn't even get a nod. When the room cleared, Morgan asked her to stay behind. I stayed too, standing by the window. "Jenna," he said, "thank you for your work. Can you give us a moment?" I turned to Chelsea. She looked pale, small, still trying to figure out how it had unraveled so quickly. "You brought this on yourself," I said softly, and I meant it. I walked out as HR walked in. The boardroom door clicked shut behind me and I didn't flinch. For once, it wasn't me left behind to explain a mess I didn't make. It wasn't me smoothing things over, apologizing on someone else's behalf. It wasn't my head on the chopping block. It was Chelsea's, and I was already walking away. My heels echoed down the hallway like a drumbeat of justice. Slow, steady, final. I passed the floor-to-ceiling windows of our main corridor, sunlight pouring in like it was blessing the moment. For the first time in weeks, I let it warm my face. I wasn't just exhausted, I was emptied, cleared out, hollowed and healed all at once. My phone buzzed. A Slack message from Lana. "Lana, holy hell, did you just destroy her in front of the board?" Me, "I didn't destroy anyone, I told the truth." Lana, "Same thing." I didn't smile, not quite, but my lips twitched. Back at my desk, I sat down and exhaled, every muscle softening like I was finally allowed to rest. 5 minutes later, my desk phone rang. It was Morgan's assistant. "Mr. Hayes would like to see you in his office." I stood up, still in the same red blazer I'd worn when I walked in that morning. Funny, I hadn't planned the outfit, but it felt right now. Fierce, honest, unapologetic, I walked into Morgan's office. This time he stood. "Close the door," he said, but not like before, not the tense kind of request. This time it felt respectful. I did. He gestured for me to sit, then leaned against the edge of his desk. "Well," he said, arms crossed, "that was one hell of a presentation." "Thank you," I said, keeping my tone professional. "And one hell of a moment," I nodded. It wasn't planned, but it was necessary. He didn't say anything for a second. Then he straightened, walked behind his desk, and picked up a folder. Inside, I could see charts, staffing diagrams, promotion proposals. "We've been reviewing department structure," he said casually. "And with the new accounts from Meridian coming in, we need someone to lead that expansion." My heart did that hopeful flutter, the one I taught myself to ignore in this building. Morgan looked at me directly. "That someone is you." Silence. Then, "I want you to lead the new cross-functional analytics team. We'll double your staff, budget approval is pending, but the role is yours." I blinked. "You're serious?" "You handled a professional crisis without losing your composure. You rebuilt a critical deliverable overnight. And you exposed fraud without turning it into a circus. That's leadership, Jenna." I nodded slowly, my voice quiet. "Thank you, I won't let you down." "I know," he said, "you never have." As I stood to leave, he added one last thing. "Oh, and Chelsea is being formally let go." I paused, hand on the doorknob. "I didn't want that," I said truthfully. "I just wanted to stop carrying what wasn't mine." Morgan gave a small smile. "Now you don't have to." Outside his office, everything looked the same, rows of desks, people tapping at keyboards, the usual hum of corporate life. But everything had changed. Not out there. In me, an hour later, I saw her, Chelsea, at her desk, packing up a small box, just a few pens, a mug, some crumpled Post-its. HR stood nearby, polite but firm. She didn't look up. She didn't acknowledge me. But as she walked toward the elevators, she slowed for just a second when passing my desk. I didn't speak. Didn't smirk, didn't offer pity or satisfaction, just sat there steady. She stepped inside the elevator, the doors closed, and just like that, she was gone. Not forever, she's still my sister. But whatever this was between us, the entitlement, the imbalance, the unspoken contract that I would always fix it, that was over. It's funny how peace doesn't make a sound, it just sort of arrives, quietly. Like soft light filling a room you didn't realize had gone dim. 3 months had passed. Chelsea was gone. The office had settled into a new rhythm, quieter, cleaner, more efficient. The tension that used to thrum between my shoulder blades every morning had vanished. I no longer entered the building bracing for fallout, because there was none. I led a new team now, cross-functional, diverse, wickedly smart. People who respected deadlines, asked good questions, showed up early, and cared. It was like breathing for the first time in years. Every Friday, I sent out a team wins recap. Every Monday, I met with Morgan to talk strategy. And every now and then, I'd catch someone referring to Jenna's department like it was just a given. Because it was. It is. I'd finally built something of my own. No shadows, no strings. And that would have been enough, honestly. But life has a way of giving you the full circle moment you didn't ask for. It was a Sunday afternoon. Cloudy. I was on my couch in Bellevue, scrolling through my email while my friend Lexi poured tea in the kitchen. "Oh my God," she said suddenly from behind me. "You need to see this." I turned. She held out her phone, screen tilted toward me, a social media post. Chelsea's. It was a blurry photo of a school hallway. Empty linoleum floors, a mop bucket in the corner, the caption, "Humble beginnings, everyone starts somewhere." The location tag, a middle school 2 towns over. No filter, no hashtags, just raw resignation wrapped in faux inspiration. I stared at it for a long time, not sure what I was feeling. Not pride, not schadenfreude, just reality. Chelsea wasn't in PR anymore, wasn't bouncing from brunch to rooftop bars pretending to hustle. She had fallen hard and she'd landed where she landed. Lexi studied me. "You okay?" I nodded. "I think so." That night, I got a text from my parents. "We'd love to come by this weekend, just us if you're open to it." It was rare for them to ask instead of assume. I replied, "Sure. Sunday works." They arrived that afternoon, carrying awkward smiles and a casserole dish like it was peace offering. We made small talk in the kitchen, the kind where everyone's waiting for the emotional shoe to drop. Eventually, Mom set her fork down. "We wanted to say we may have been too hard on you." Dad nodded, eyes down. "You always handled things. I think we just forgot you were handling people, not problems." I didn't say anything at first. Just sipped my coffee and looked at the 2 people who had once dismissed every warning I gave about Chelsea. But this time, they weren't defending her. They weren't blaming me. They were here, finally, as parents. I let the silence stretch for a moment longer, then I said, "I'm not angry anymore." Mom's eyes watered. "Really?" I nodded. "But I'm different now. My life, it's mine, my rules, my pace, my peace." They exchanged a look. "I don't think we realized how much we expected you to fix things," Dad said softly. "For everyone." I smiled, not bitter, just done. "I know," I said, "but that job's filled by me for me." After they left, I spent the evening with friends, people who didn't ask for explanations, didn't pull guilt from my ribs like thread. We played games, drank wine, laughed about bad Tinder bios and weird Trader Joe's finds. No drama, no crisis, no apologies for being okay. As I curled into bed that night, I scrolled through the notes from my team, the little emojis they added to each other's wins, the silly gifs, the occasional "you crushed it," floating through the thread. This was the life I'd built when I stopped building one for someone else. It wasn't revenge. It was freedom. It was boundaries. It was mine.